Hello and welcome to the Bowling University studio from the International Bowling Campus in Arlington, Texas. This is the Profit Break. If you're joining us for the first time, we're glad you're here. Give us 15 minutes and you'll be well on your way to improving yourself and your profitability. Along with bowling, the heart of most family entertainment centers is often the game room experience. If you're looking to keep your arcade business thriving and give your guests the best experience, you need to stay current with the latest trends, what your customers love, and the newest technologies. Joining us for some expert insights are industry pros Amber Lambert and Steve Lamoreaux from Betson Enterprises, a worldwide distributor of arcade and amusement equipment. With backgrounds in operations, card systems, equipment manufacturing, and customer support, they bring a level of expertise that's hard to beat. At the upcoming Bowl Expo in Denver, Amber and Steve will be facilitating a session on navigating the future of the arcade industry. On today's Profit Break episode, we're going to get a preview of this must-see session. Amber, Steve, thank you so much for joining us and spending some time with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's jump right into it because there is a lot to talk about, and I know this is going to be a popular session with the members. So when we're talking about the future and we're talking about the digital age, why don't we start with marketing? So Amber, let me ask you, how can bowling centers effectively market themselves to attract not just new, but repeat customers in this digital age?
Yeah, absolutely. The social media is where you really need to be. Most people are on Facebook, but I don't see a lot of centers that are utilizing where their customers are, which is TikTok, Instagram. Have you had an influencer come into your center? That makes a huge difference. A lot of people like seeing like behind the scenes moments, fun blunders and outtakes, things like that. Doing some online contests and challenges we'll talk about in our session, give you some ideas. Loyalty programs. Gamifying everything. So if you have, challenges where people can play a certain number of games, they get a prize. Steve, do you have some things you want to add?
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of arcades tend to do is not use the marketing assets they have within their game room themselves. Games like Space Invaders and some of those literally have USB ports that you can import data into to highlight a child's birthday party. I've seen that where they'll have a picture of the birthday kid in the arcade and it keeps flashing on the attract screen on the Space Invaders. So a lot of those games do provide some marketing opportunities, and not only the games but also the card readers. The card readers can promote and push more things like food and beverage and other things. So the equipment itself can be used as a marketing asset. And as far as space for an arcade, saw this a lot in the 90s and 2000s where a lot of places were reducing lanes to put arcades in. And we still think that's a viable solution for the places that haven't done it. Even one or two lanes, that average maybe $700, $800 a week as a lane. If you remove those and start adding games in, you can make more than that by quite a bit by adding the games in there. As opposed to $800 a week, you can make $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a week in the same space. So reallocating some of the space, if you have 25 lanes and really only consistently seeing 12 sold out, maybe you can look at changing that out. Or, some of the facilities have large lane counts left over, 30, 40 lanes that you can easily remove some of those to add some arcade space. So that's some of the things we're seeing these locations do.
Yeah, good, excellent point. That's a really great point. I think a lot of the proprietors are looking at that and just trying to keep up with the times because that game area is so important. I love your comment about the equipment itself. That's something that I think a lot of us don't consider, that it's such a great marketing tool. Okay. Good, thanks, good answer. So Steve, let's go with you with the next one. So when we're talking about innovation and strategies or technologies, can you give us a sense for what might be emerging out there that the center should be aware of?
Sure, it's a pretty exciting time for the technology to be coming into the game room. The days of the tickets and tokens are dwindling. There's really probably less than 10% of the operators out there that are still running tickets and tokens, and they've all gone to RFID technology, cashless technology, through the use of their card systems. And those card systems are actually improving to be able to take Apple Pay, Google Pay. So rather than having to load a card, you can literally use your phone to go around an arcade. So we're seeing that happen a lot. And then within the facility themselves, we're seeing a lot of things like Spark with the lane overlays that provide a whole different way to play, to bowl. You're playing Angry Birds and some of those games rather than just straight bowling. So you reach out to a whole new audience that may not enjoy traditional bowling, but really enjoy some of the other forms that it can provide. VR is another, VR rooms and spaces are another emerging category. You know, redemption games, video games have always been there, but we're seeing the video category evolve into a VR category, and that's where I truly see the future in the next 5-10 years. Is video will all probably VR or a big portion of it. So they're doing that. And then one of the other things I'm seeing on the service side is lane side and app ordering. A lot of places still don't provide this, where you can sit down, rent your lane for an hour, and you can't order food. You have to go up to the snack bar. You have to go somewhere else to interact and get your food and beverage. We're seeing more people integrate the apps and things to make that smooth. And then one of the cooler things are the robotic servers. Some of you may have seen. These are bring the food and drink straight to your table. They're a conversation point. They're really cool to see. So a lot of those technologies are coming in to modernize the facilities, which is key. Stay modern if you want to continue to attract a diverse audience.
It's exciting. You know, the times are exciting with the technology changes and embracing those and just enhancing that overall experience. So, so let's stay on that topic for a little bit. Amber, you know, as time goes on, and your guests change, your guest preferences change. What is the best way that centers can adapt to those changing technologies and changing consumer preferences?
So I think a big thing is making sure you're rebranding, refreshing, reinvesting in your center. Get a mobile app. Everything's on phones right now. So mobile app engagement, engaging with your customers. Community engagement is huge. Just getting involved with your community. I just did an article on LinkedIn about, you know, how the employees today choose where they're going to work based on how much you give back to the society. And knowing your audience is huge. So I was reading today that 50% of bowling consumers are under 34, and there's a 10% rise in female bowlers. So are you really marketing to your audience, or are you marketing to who you used to market to? And then, Steve mentioned it earlier, keeping up with game trends, adding card systems, just being relevant and current.
Yeah, I guess I don't fit that new demographic, that's for sure. That's an important point. Good information. You know, let's stay on the trends, and I know, Steve, you touched on it a little bit as well, too, but any other upcoming trends or genres of games that the center should keep an eye on to try to attract that changing demographic?
I think VR is probably the biggest elephant in the room. Unattended VR seems to be what is working in an arcade. We saw a lot of the attended VR attractions come and go, but the unattended, where you don't have to have an employee, seems to be really emerging. You're seeing games like King Kong, Ultramoto VR, Godzilla, some of these VR games that are continuing to come out. And one of the things I've seen as a sales rep is a lot of these customers that have jumped into VR are not adding to the category. So they'll buy a VR game, a new one will come out, they'll trade that VR game in for another VR, but they're not expanding that. And I think that's improper. And I think that people should be looking at having multiple attractions rather than just constantly trading one VR. You really should start expanding that category, as it really is the future of the video category. A lot of places are starting to do merchandising rooms, crane rooms, claw rooms, seeing them set aside special areas within their arcade or within their facility outside of the arcade that just spotlight the merchandising machines. And they can do a lot of things within that to promote themselves, give away gift cards to their facilities, but a lot of separate merchandising areas within a facility. And then again, using your games as attractions. Some of these games are getting monstrous in size. So a game like a dodgeball and some of these are truly an attraction piece in themselves. So those are some of the trends we're starting to see. Large games are being built more and more. We're hearing rumors of that switching back to smaller games, but for right now, the games as attractions and VR are really the emerging trends we're seeing.
Interesting. Good advice. Good advice. Speaking of advice, Amber, let's get your take on this. If you could give one piece of advice to bowling center or arcade owners about staying relevant, keeping up with the time, what would that be?
I would say don't run your games into the ground. They're expensive. I know that they look at them like a car. At some point, if you trade in your car after it, only has a couple years, it still has good value. But if you run it into the ground, and it's 10 years old and 500,000 miles, you're going to be lucky to get scrapped for it. So treat your games the same way. Stay relevant with your games. Trade them in while they still have a trade-in value, and it keeps your game room fresh, and it'll keep things earning for you, so you don't get down the road 10 years and have to replace all your old Cyclone games. So, Steve, what advice would you give?
My topic is always for business owners looking at if we're going to do an arcade, is this an afterthought or a forethought? Because a lot of times I'll get customers call and say, hey, we just built a facility and we're thinking of adding a few games. And that's not as forward thinking as the guy that comes to me and says, hey, I'm building a facility. I've got X amount of square feet and we'd like to build our arcade within that space. So the truth of the matter is that the arcades in most locations are running on the low end 15 up to 30 or 40% of an overall location's revenue. So if it's going to be that big of a part of the puzzle, treat it as such. It is a business opportunity within the arcade, and it can be a huge profit center for you. But you have to focus. You can't just plug the games in and watch them make money. Mm-hmm. There's a science to it, and it can all be taught. It's educational. You have to learn about it. But if you run it properly and put some thought into it, it will pay off big rewards long term.
Good advice. We have time for one more question. So we talked a lot about the technology and the equipment and so on. But Steve, let me throw this one out to you. When you're giving advice about enhancing that overall guest experience, okay? So along those lines, Steve, what advice would you give our proprietors about enhancing the overall guest experience?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's aesthetics. For me, it's, do you have equipment on your floor that's out of order? Are you putting handwritten signs, things that just, don't really add any aesthetic value to the room? Are you seeing dirt? Is the facility dirty? Are the games dirty? You got to keep those things clean. The customers will notice things like that. If a game's dirty, they'll assume the facility is dirty. Hire well. Hire and invest in your team. If you hire well, customer service oriented people that can interact with your customers, it will go a lot further than just hiring a minimum wage worker that just exists and doesn't do anything to interact with customers. They're just there. So, and as a manager and owner, I would recommend you interact with your customers as well. I've seen owners talk to customers on the floor, and it really goes a long way for the customers to see that, to have that experience, to be able to tell an owner, hey, I'm working, this is what I'm seeing. But cleanliness is a big thing, and that daily interaction with your customers would be the other half of that.
Mm-hmm. So technology aside, the basic blocking and tackling still works, right? Don't forget those different things. All right. Well, Amber and Steve, thank you so much. That's great information. I for one, am looking forward to your hour-long presentation at Bowl Expo. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about today's episode, join us at the International Bowl Expo in Denver. Amber and Steve will be presenting an in-depth 1-hour session on navigating the future of the arcade industry on Wednesday, July 3rd at 9:45 a.m. If you're ready to start improving your center's profitability, you can reach us at any time at education@bpaa.com. As we wrap up another edition of the Profit Break, remember that when your focus is on growing people, people will grow your business. This episode, as well as all previous Profit Break episodes, are available 24/7 for you and your team at bowlinguniversity.net. Plus, new episodes are available every month. So mark your calendar, watch your email, and join us on Facebook to hear about the latest episodes. Until next time, remember, do for one what you wish you could do for all. I'm John Karabatsis. We'll see you then.